This year we decided to personalize our Christmas card, so I was tasked to sketch one. I looked for a photo based on Creative Commons license. This is the photo. In a similar way, I would like to encourage you to consider making handmade Christmas cards, or even if you don't have the time to sketch so many, you might want to sketch one and then have it printed like what I'm going to do here. I have intention to print 50 of these from this one single image. I'll show you how I'm going to do that later, and how I go about getting it printed in Singapore here at least. As you can see, I'm taking a very loose interpretation of the three garden gnomes. My lines are loose, and I don't have all the details, but that's not the point. The point is to make an interesting enough image so that I can print it on Christmas cards that I can send out. So in some way it is hybrid. It is not all made by hand, but it's one single image and to be printed on 50 to be sent out. So in some way it's kind of hybrid personalized. I have intention to use a simple Christmas complementary color, red against green. Red green is always kind of Christmassy, right? But I intend to use as many red in that one image as possible. So in other words, in every shape I will try to use queen rose, permanent alizarin crimson, thrown in a little bit of cadmium orange, thrown in a little bit of opera from Holbein, maybe even a little bit of cat scarlet, Daniel Smith. The idea is to make a complex red, or at least in every little shape of red. I don't use a single red, I use a few colors to mix them up. So remember to make your sketch a little bit more loose. It's one of the tips that I'll be making in the future, is to use multi-color as much as possible. Multicolor creates a sense of diversity of colors, and diversity of colors create a sense of play. That's the looseness that I'm after in some ways. And of course for the green, I throw in a bit of lemon yellow besides rich green, gold, and viridian, which I've just added into my palette, as well as phthalo green blue shades. The next part is to create a bit of a foreground background contrast. I'm going to play with lines, using a very small tiny brush to kind of draw lines if you like. But I also want a bit of softness on the edge, so I spritzer somewhat on the side, but in the middle I kind of leave the lines intact more or less. Again, on the edge I will spritzer it to make it softer. In some way that's kind of like the vignette effect, if you like, of a photograph. So that's for the foreground. I continue to create dark shapes to make the gnome pop, if you like. The dark shapes that go right through behind of the hats, and that essentially give a sense of something that runs right through to the back, and hence making the gnomes pop or push it to the front. I've spoken about these at length in the ingredient of shape, as well as space actually, in some of my earlier videos. If you have not seen that series, do check it out. The 7 ingredients for urban sketching. I kind of stole that from the 7 elements of design, but I adapted it somewhat for the purposes of teaching urban sketching. Alright, back to this. My intention, like you see here, sharper foreground, and I splatter somewhat just to play with the colors a little bit. But anyway, I'm going to wet down the back with clear water. I intend to have a soft and diffuse background. So as I wet it down, I make sure that the wetness is somewhat even. I'm going to go in with soft diffused green, and that's a combination of green gold with a tad of viridian thrown in. I didn't, like you see, I didn't kind of paint across in one solid color, but I let the water do its magic, let the color diffuse, and so on and so forth. And meanwhile, while I wait for it to dry, I go in with a grade sort of diluted version of phthalo green plus permanent alizarin crimson diluted, and I use it to draw beard lines and so on. And I also darken some of the other lines and use it for shadow and so on and so forth. At this point, the foreground background contrast is playing out nicely. In other words, the foreground is sharp with sharp lines. The background is soft diffuse line. That creates somewhat of a tension and contrast, but also push the foreground forward. Anything sharper will always look nearer, and anything softer, diffuse, will always look pushed out to the back. Again, it's one of those little things you can use to create space or dimension, if you like, pushing object to the front and pushing object to the back by just playing around with the diffused nature of watercolor. I've gone in and maybe draw some tweaks and lines like I see on a photograph, not trying to be very clear. The paper is still a little bit wet, so you can see that it will create somewhat of a soft diffuse branches lines as well. But of course, I'm going in a bit darker. The combination is green, add a bit of queen burnt orange, and that will give it a bit of a earthy sort of colors, if you like, slightly darker but slightly earthy. It's very important to also put in some of the grays, a bit of the shadow part of the gnomes, darken some part to make the three gnomes pop, if you like. A bit more lines to define the edges, if you like, and also just to make it more defined. At this point, I'm thinking, I'm going to need more shadow. I put in a bit more dark of the eyeball and put in a bit of shadow underneath the nose and cheeks, and maybe a bit of lines just to contour it and to make sure that the gnomes is a bit more readable. The idea of readability is very important when you look at something that you sketch. If you see that they are not as readable, maybe you need a bit of lines, a bit of outline and so on. And here I'm ready to put in a bit of white, opaque white, my trusty Copic opaque white, a bit for the eye, the line, not line, but the little dots here and there to kind of get some of the highlights that I've lost while I was getting carried away with throwing colors on a paper. Anyway, it's all fun, including the whites. And if you're having fun with your sketch and your sketch is full of joy and fun, it shows through. You can't quite hide it, including the outcome. So I'm done, more or less, I think. Put my name, Whee Teck, and I think just a bit of evaluation. I am not sure I'm going to add any more. I think that's about it. Now, I'm kind of ready to show you how I go about getting my sketch printed here in Singapore. Here's the card. I Photoshop it with Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. And so I took a walk down to the nearest mall here in the west coast of Singapore, or West Coast Road. The West Coast Mall is right very near where I lived, so I walked here. I know there's a printing shop, and I'm going to show you that I'm going to get it printed. It's a very small mall, actually, only about 3-story high, with some small shops, including Daiso, if you know what that is, that sells all the Japanese trinkets at $2 Sing. Really, really interesting shop. So I made my way up the escalator, and I'm gonna find this shop that I know. It's called Zorex, small print house. It's always nice to support shops near your place, because you want them to be around, right, to serve you when you need it. And sometimes they are a little bit more expensive, but it doesn't really matter if you support them and make sure that they survive, because in this COVID time it is hard, right? So shop is just right here somewhere. Yep, there it is, Zorex. I'm gonna talk to whoever is here, and I've given him my image. He is asking me what paper do I want. I selected my 190 gram paper, art paper, and he's designing it, and he's sending it to the print. Gave me a copy to take a look at. I like what I see. I said go for it. Print the rest of the 49 cards, right? I'm gonna make it into Christmas cards. And after he's printed it, he gave the whole stack to me. Nicely done, love it. He checks through, very nice, very thorough. I like that service, and he put it in, I paid, and I'm off. Lovely. It's nice to see your work all in a day's job, having sketched it just a couple of hours before, having scanned it, and it's all printed nicely in my hand. Now I'm taking a bus. Yes, I do take a bus. The bus in Singapore is very efficient. Love it. So I took a bus from West Coast Mall to Clementi Mall, where I know there's a shop called Popular. It's not just Popular, it's the name of a popular bookstore, and I know exactly where it is. So I took a bus down, and I'm gonna go find some envelopes to go with my newly minted cards. So I came out from the bus, walked to the mall, and well, as you can see, everything is quite nice and efficient and so on. It didn't take me quite long to get from West Coast to Clementi Mall. Check in. There's all this beep beep stuff that you have to right. I have a token, and that token tells me, the gentleman right here, that I'm vaccinated, and I have checked in as well, so that if anything happens around this mall, I would have the information to alert me that, or an app that alerts me that I have proximity to COVID-19 people, right? Popular. And I'm gonna go look for that envelope somewhere, and I think I know where it is. Found it. A5 size envelopes. Ooh, I saw some multicolor version as well, so I think I'm gonna get variety of envelopes just for fun. Yeah, all the colors. Yep. And then I was on my way to pay, and then I discovered, there you are, all the colors, all 5 colors, 5 times 10, 50 plus my cards. Then I think happily, be sending out cards very, very soon. Yeah. Oh, I found some of these stickers. I decided to get some as well. Stickers, envelopes, and yeah, printed cards, all in a day's job. Pretty nice for activity for a few hours in the Sunday afternoon. I think my wife will be very pleased with the outcome. Yep, I better go queue up and pay for this stuff that I've collected. Nice lady do the checkout for me. I brought my own bag to avoid using more plastics. Save, not just money, but also the earth, I suppose. So there you go, family and friends who are on our mailing list for Christmas cards will be expected to receive this Christmas card. Alright, this is Whee Teck out. Stay safe wherever you are, and I hope you make more of your own cards. Alright, bye.